Greetings, this is the Grumpy Old Slan, and today we're going to take a look at the 7th level Cleric spells in Unearthed Arcana. So as we can see, there are 12 7th level Cleric spells listed, of which 2 are new, and those are the ones we're going to take a look at. The first spell is Exaction. This spell will affect one creature and will take 1 round to cast. When this spell is employed, the cleric confronts some powerful creature from another plane, including devas and powerful name demons, for instance, but not demigods or deities of any sort, and requires of it some duty or quest. The creature may not be one ethically or morally opposed to the cleric, i.e. not evil if the cleric is good, not chaotic if the cleric is lawful. Note that an absolute, true neutral creature is in effect greatly opposed to both good and evil, and to both law and chaos. The spellcaster must know something about the creature to exact service from it, or else he or she must offer some fair trade in return for the service. That is, if the cleric is aware that the creature has received some favor from someone of the cleric's alignment, then the exaction can name this as cause. If no balancing reason for service is known, then some valuable gift or service must be pledged in return for the exaction. The service exacted must be reasonable with respect to the past or promised favor or reward. The spell then acts as a quest upon the creature, which is to perform the required service. Immediately upon completion of the service, the subject creature is transported to the vicinity of the cleric, and the cleric must then and there return the promised reward, whether it is irrevocable cancellation of a past debt or the giving of some service or other material reward. Upon so doing, the creature is instantly freed to return to its own plane. Failure to fulfill the promise to the letter results in the cleric being subject to exaction by the subject creature or by its master, liege, etc., at the very least. At worst, the creature may attack the reneging cleric without fear of any of his or her spells affecting it, for the failure to live up to the bargain gives the creature total immunity from the spell powers of the cleric so doing. The material components of this spell are the cleric's holy unholy symbol, some matter or substance from the plane of the creature from whom an exaction is to be expected, and knowledge of the creature's nature and or actions, which is written out on a parchment leaf that is burned to seal the bargain. So, this seems to be a powerful spell at first, but if you think about it, all it does is act like an overseeing authority when you write a contract between two parties. It's basically going to force the creature to do what is asked of it, but it also forces the cleric to pay for the service rendered. So in that way, it's not as powerful as it might seem at first. The other thing that really limits this spell is that whatever creature you summon to do this has to be of the same alignment as the cleric, which basically means for lawful clerics, there's a high likelihood that they could convince the creature to do the service because of its ethics and morals. Similarly, for good clerics, they could likely convince a good creature to perform the service in the name of good. I see this happening less for evil and certainly less for chaotic clerics, since chaos is often reflected in the individualistic nature of the creatures and people who follow this path. This is a bit of a DM spell more than anything else, since what you could do is have a very high level cleric use the exaction to force an evil demon, for example, to accomplish some sort of very lengthy, difficult task for the cleric. And this could be campaign level stuff. There doesn't seem to be a limit to how extensive the service can be. So the service could be help me fight my wars for the next decade, and so the creature would have to serve for the next decade, provided either the debt it owes or the reward is going to be given is perceived by that creature to be worth the decade in service. One of the things that's lacking here is guidance should the reward not be enough or the debt owed not be big enough for the service. DMs are left a little bit to themselves if the players were to use this spell, but I could see this spell being a great plot point in a campaign where an evil extraplanar creature gets defeated by the party and they only discover that the entire time this creature was under the exaction spell of a very high level evil cleric who was pulling the strings from behind the scenes the whole time. So it's one way to have a bigger, badder evil happening in your campaign. The next spell is called Succor. It takes an entire day to cast, and it will affect one individual. By casting this spell, the cleric creates a powerful dwemer in some specially prepared object, a string of prayer beads, a small clay tablet, an ivory baton, etc. This object will radiate magic, for it contains the power to instantaneously transport its possessor to the sanctuary of the cleric who created its dwemer. Once the item is magic, the cleric must give it willingly to an individual, at the same time informing him or her of a command word to be spoken when the item is to be used. To make use of the item, the recipient must speak the command word at the same time that he or she rends or breaks the item. When this is done, the individual and all that he or she is wearing and carrying will be instantly transported to the sanctuary of the cleric, just as if the individual were capable of speaking a word of recall spell. No other creatures can be affected. The reversed application of the spell enables the cleric to be transported to the immediate vicinity of the possessor of the dwemered item. The cleric can choose not to be affected by this summons by making that decision at the instant when the transportation is to take place, but if he or she so chooses, then the opportunity is gone forever and the spell is wasted. The cost of preparing the special item for either version of the spell varies from 2 to 5,000 gold pieces. So this is another apparently quite powerful spell that has some very serious limitations on it. The fact that no other creatures can be affected. This could mean that a magic user with a familiar might refuse to use this since their familiar would not be transported with them. At great expense, a high-level cleric could cast one of these spells over the course of several days on several objects, one for each party member. There's no explanation for the range and price there, so I guess that's up to the GM to decide. But what the criteria would be, I don't know. The reversed application only allows the cleric to be transported somewhere and not anyone else. So this means that you can't use it to have, say, someone infiltrate a fortress that the party can't just walk into and then have everyone else teleport to it. You could have the cleric join them, but that's just a second person. Now maybe that's enough, but also the person sneaking in will be carrying an item that radiates magic, which may or may not make the task of infiltration harder. So we only had 2 spells this time. Exaction, I really feel, is more of a DM spell. It could allow for very interesting campaign points. Succor seems to be quite limited, though potentially very powerful. Both spells require a lot of planning and a lot of preparation in order to be able to use them. This has been the Grumpy Old Slan, looking at 7th level cleric spells in Unearthed Arcana, and I'll see you next time.